Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on Ball Talk with Boyd. It's been a minute, but I'm telling you, the wait is going to be worth it because I have a guest here today who is going to have some wisdom, some game to spit that you guys are not going to want to miss out on. I got Bryan Filker, Bryan Coach Dr. Filker. How we doing, Bryan?
Appreciate you having me on, man. That's more an intro than I deserve, man. I'm just a guy. I appreciate you hyping it up like that a little bit.
Yes, sir. You're just a guy that knows how to get stuff done and just loves ball like all of us do. So I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for joining me. How's everything going?
Life's good, man. We're in those dog days of summer, as you hear it often referred to as. We're in the midst of official visits, camp season, 7-on-7, big skill camp, like you name it, kids camp, youth camps, free community outreach type things, like all the things and the stuff. But it's that time of year where we really kind of have that push before things kind of calm down, and we get back to it in the fall. So it's a good time right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what we're talking about right now for the listeners is Bryan is currently serving as the Director of Recruiting Operations at the Southern Methodist University, known as SMU. And you've been there for what, like 4 or 5 years now in total?
Year 5, yeah. So once we hit this fall, it'll be year 5. It's hard to believe,
sir.
man.
Yeah, it is. Time flies, man. I feel like, it felt like time was flying when I was in high school and college, and then I get to be an adult, and it's every week it's just boom, 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 boom. Next thing I know, it's June when I was just thinking about December.
Man, being an adult, it's overrated. Like I blinked and I'm like, man, I'm almost 40. What happened the past 20 years? Like, this is not. I just want to go back and watch some cartoons and chill, you know?
I know exactly what you mean, man. So, okay, you're at SMU. So the whole premise of Ball Talk with Boyd is the idea that working in sports isn't always just the cookie cutter roles that a lot of people think of, like, oh, you're a coach, oh, you're a trainer, oh, you do ticket sales. There are so many other roles that make these professional and collegiate and high school sports all succeed. And I feel like something that people don't talk about all the time is the recruiting aspect of it. And they always think that the coaches kind of handle a lot of that. So tell me just a little bit about why you are so passionate about recruiting and what you love about recruiting.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not unlike a lot of people out there. Like I really thought that it was coaching or, player evaluation, scouting type components. Like for me, from the outside looking in, I was like, that's what it's all about, right? So at one point in time, I was going to school to become a teacher, to become a coach, do that whole route because I thought that was sports, right? Then once I got on the inside of it, I actually kind of broke in more on the player personnel, player evaluation realm. Doing a lot more of the film cut ups, searching for transfer portal players, high school players, things of that nature. Just because out of really just being, I guess, kind of naive to what was out there, and I thought that I could watch film, have an internet connection, have a computer, and I could post up at a McDonald's at 4 a.m. in the parking lot, right, and watch film or be at home, whatever it was. So really for me, that was the breaking point. And then once I got into the building, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy watching film. Like there's times where you sit down and you're getting a feel for what the player could be, for your team, plugging in a scheme, what coaches really like, if a defensive coach really likes a player to have these traits or these skill sets, like awesome. But for me, I realized that I had a lot more to offer in terms of like the soft skills and the people skills and that different kind of component. So I don't want to get it twisted by any means. Like our coaches are the ones that are, banging the door down, being the primary recruiters, right? And we've got some elite recruiters on our staff, like guys that I don't know how they keep track of everybody's name and their siblings' name and their activities, things that are going on. So like I have incredible respect for what they do in their process, but to be a part of it and being more of the support role of, okay, once guys are here on campus, maybe doing some hosting, whether it's taking them around, giving them campus tours, giving them facility tours, and telling them why I chose SMU and why I love SMU, right? So for me, it's really just like, I feel like SMU has kind of become an extension of myself. So in terms, like, I'm not really even selling the school, I'm selling a part of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, like, it's so easy to come through, and like every day it's like, man, my office is littered with SMU stuff. My kids love, SMU and the pony up. So like, so everything that's my dad wears exclusively SMU clothes going around in Ohio. So it's like, it's become such a part of me, and not necessarily my identity, but it's become a part of my story. And for me, it's become very easy to share that love of SMU and kind of the direction of where we're going.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I really appreciate about you and recruiters is that it becomes more of a community thing, not always just a football thing. It becomes this is a right place for you, and we have the right pieces around all over the place to make sure that you can become the best version of yourself, not just the best athlete, but the best version of yourself. And I feel like that's something that is really valuable. You know, these kids and these students, athletes really need that attention and need that love and care. So I feel like that's a really cool thing that you guys get to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, it's a thing. Like at the end of the day, football is what brings us together, right? Like if you can't play, there's probably not really a baseline for the relationship, right? Just keeping it a buck. But like even with our students and stuff too, or our specialists that we call them, like football brings us together. But what do we build our relationships on, like outside of football, right? So you think
Hmm.
about something that we started talking about a little more recently here in the building is like, okay, recruiting doesn't just end once you get someone, signed, committed, committed, signed at the school. Like you have to worry about roster retention now too, right? So how do you show these guys that you care about them, right? It's not just, hey, I like you because you're a football player, you're a good football player, you can help our team. It's like, let me get to know you as a person and find out what makes you tick. Let's find out, your good days, your bad days, and if there's a way you can be there as a support element for them. Like at the end of the day, we need to be here for these I don't want to call them kids, young men, right? The 18 to 25 or 20, whatever the windows are now, right? But being here for them in very pivotal points of their development and their growth. And a lot of us, older guys, if you will, guys and gals, have gone through a lot of the waves of what they're going through, right? Have gone off to school, have maybe, hadn't lost a job or had a breakup or whatever the things could be, right? To connect on things that are outside of football, but just kind of
Absolutely.
leaving that in the forefront there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. So you've covered how SMU means so much to you, but we didn't really get to how you got to SMU and what all you did leading up to it because you didn't necessarily have, by any means, the most traditional path, correct?
Correct. It's probably one of the least traditional pathways you would expect. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back a little bit. Let's say you finish high school, right? So you finish high school, and what was Brian thinking when you finished high school?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I'm a big movie guy, right? And I think about these old cliche like 90s movies where it's like the record skips, everything stops, and you're like, you might wonder how we got here. Let's take it back, right? So we're back here, 2009, graduated high school, grew up in like middle of nowhere, Ohio. Like I say Cleveland area, it was the closest like major city. We're maybe 30 minutes west of Cleveland. So grew up in the cornfields, like there was not a
Which
lot.
what city?
I grew up it's Oberlin, Vermilion area, so there's not a lot of people who are super familiar with that, but it's around Lake Erie area, close to Cedar Point, are kind of the major landmarks there, if you will. So grew up there.
I'm at DePaul, and we swim against Oberlin because they're in our
Okay,
conference.
cool,
Yep.
cool. Yeah,
Yep.
we that's a small world, man. But yeah, so that part of the country, there's not really. It's a good place to grow up from the standpoint of like life's a little bit slower. Everyone really knows each other. You have more of that communal feel. But it was one of those things where I always just thought that there was like more out there. I just didn't really know how to get to that. Of course, I had dreams and aspirations as a kid. Like basketball was really my first love, right? I was like, okay, I want to go to the league, I want to do this kind of stuff. Unfortunately for me, at the time, I didn't really realize how big of a jump that would be, right? And I wasn't really putting the time, energy, and effort to get to that point, just being realistic on the back end. I made a joke recently to some of my friends. I played against Larry Nance Jr. in middle school. We played an AAU tournament, right? And now he was on the Cavs in the playoff run, and I'm playing noon hoops here at SMU. So it's like our past with two different areas.
Yeah.
But seeing that, it's just kind of cool. But understanding I wanted to be in and around sports and how pivotal that was to me in my life. Whether it was, my dad was always constantly around as helping out with coaching for us, or just some of the other mentors that I had in the space, and I saw a lot of the lessons that I learned, and thought that'd be a good pathway to kind of connect with people. So graduate high school, was going to stay just like local junior college, try to figure out my path, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I enrolled in a junior college, and I was in the teaching course or teaching program. I got into my first teaching class, and the kids were awesome. Like I was doing like an after school program, and they were great, but it was like all the other red tape that you had to go through to just lesson planning and everything else. I'm like, this is not for me. So
Yeah.
it took me 7 years to get an associate's degree, which is not impressive by any stretch, right? So that was tough.
Got
'Cause
it
I didn't
done.
know, yeah, got it done, but didn't know
Got
what
it
I wanted
done.
to do. Didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I just kind of did a bunch of random jobs in my 20s, man. So I worked anything from I was at McDonald's for almost 5 years. At one point in my life, I thought I was going to be, some regional supervisor at McDonald's. I loved it, like people person, trying to be hospitable. We were really almost like at least at our McDonald's, we were like the Chick-fil-A before Chick-fil-A. Like we were trying to
Yeah.
do, my pleasure, make sure people are good. We're going and like refilling their drinks in the lobby. It's like all the crazy stuff, right? Did that. I worked in like commercial manufacturing. I worked in door-to-door security system sales. I was a complex rehab tech, so I was doing custom medical equipment to running a vitamin store, like you name it. Didn't
Hmm.
really know what I wanted to do. Eventually hit a reset, joined the military. So I did that. I did 4 years in the Air Force. And that brought to a point where COVID hit. Everything kind of shut down for us in our world. I was living in Alaska at the time. And it gave me a chance to kind of reevaluate life and what I wanted. So it's at that kind of pivotal point where was married, had the kiddos, like everything's starting to kind of come together from a life perspective, right? And it's like, okay, do you keep doing the things that you're doing now to provide, or do you pursue something that you're passionate about and know that you can do, right? So I decided to do the latter, right? And COVID was a perfect storm for that. That a lot of people were home and accessible. So I reached out to everybody and their brother on Twitter at the time, LinkedIn, getting on random Zoom calls, just trying to find any way to connect. Two people in particular were really pivotal in my in mentoring myself. Alex Brown was most recently a scout with Atlanta Falcons. At the time, was with Rice down there in Houston, and then Guys Crowley, who's now the GM of Arkansas. I'm trying to think where he was at the time. Might have been like Northern Illinois or something along those lines. Those two guys
Hmm.
poured into me and kind of gave me some advice. Got in the scouting academy. Got hooked up with them with Dan Hatman, so kind of learned the fundamentals of scouting and player evaluation. And that was a great course because I got connected with guys and girls both that were interested in the same career path. So still in contact with some of those today that we were in the program with. But I figured if nothing else, I would learn how to evaluate talent. Like I grew up as a Browns fan, and I watched a lot of really bad football, right, for years. Like I'm a card carrying
You
member.
know, good for bad.
Come on, man. I'm like, if nothing else, I can tell you what a good quarterback looks like in contrast because I watched a lot of bad ones. Um,
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah, all jokes aside, like I knew that I could do it. I just had to find a way how to get to that point. So I was like, let me manufacture my own experience. So started, on the player evaluation side, got hooked up with the 33rd team. At the time was just really a startup with Mike Tannenbaum and Joe Banner, and it was really a football think tank. We'd get on and we'd watch film with Wade Phillips, and he'd just be on the couch, talking ball with us. We'd have Ray Farmer get on and talk about what's like being in the front office and those kind of decisions. We'd have different NFL officials get on and talk about rule changes, and it's just like a really cool spot to get locked in and work on different projects. So I was a Big 12 area scout for them. Also covered offensive line prospects for the draft for them, and some analytical type work too. So did that and kind of set the foundation for the pathway moving forward. And a handful of those folks that I worked with, actually more than a handful, have gone on now. My direct boss, Will Myers, he's the DPP over at Georgia now. I've got
Hmm.
a couple folks that are in the Seahawks analytics department. They just won Super Bowls. So I mean, like you're Peter Engler and Becca Ehrenbaum's, like they're off doing incredible things. You got a few others sprinkled throughout NFL and college football. So it's like that was an incredible experience to learn in a low pressure situation because there wasn't a team
Absolutely.
reporting to. Any questions up to
Really
this
cool.
point? Yeah.
Yeah, like that 33rd team opportunity. That sounds so awesome. Like I am a big fan of 33rd team now, especially now. They're killing it with the media game. I love all their content. So tell me a little bit about how you got connected with the 33rd team.
Yeah, so it honestly felt pretty random. I remember getting an email from Peter Engler, and he was like their analytics director of scouting type guy, right? And I couldn't really find him online. I thought it was maybe just a spam thing, but I was out there, I was on Twitter, I was trying to tell my story about, hey, I'm trying to get in this space, here's what I'm doing. I was going to conferences and symposiums, trying to, break in some kind of way. And ended up being an email to, hey, jump on, we'd love to interview you. We have an internship program. And it lined up perfectly for me because I was able to get out of the military 6 months early to pursue like a career transition program. So our operations were still kind of slow. It gave me a chance to do that, spend more time at home as well, but then also just kind of fine tune my skills and kind of build my network. So I got an interview, jumped on the phone with, I think it was like 4 or 5 guys, and then just asked, fire away with questions, right?
Yeah.
What I was trying to do, what I wanted to get out of this, what was my career goals, aspirations, all that. And we became super close just throughout the process, like always rooting for people as different jobs would come up. And at that time, we were just trying to figure it out because it wasn't a whole lot of structure in place. We were trying to figure out how to monetize still, like how do we create content that people want to be to pay for, subscribe to, whatever. And ever since, that was a really great, I think it was about 8 month process in total, but learned so
Hmm.
much from that. And it just really, I mean, it's been incredible to keep tabs with some of those folks and just see what it's evolved into. Because I mean, it's a behemoth in the space now, man. It's fun to see their stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I feel like all of those young internship programs are so amazing, and you don't realize it in the moment because, like you said, you end up seeing so many of these people go on to do amazing things. It's like my co-interns from one of them when I was with the New York Jets. He is now one of the athlete marketing directors for Athletes First. And one of my co-interns for the Bears, she's a scouting assistant for the Panthers. So yeah, that is a really cool thing.
And it's cool too, Spencer, because like you end up in a spot where at the time you don't really realize it. And this is something that we emphasize here a lot too. Like you're going through it, and we make the joke of like trauma bonding, right? Like you're going through the waves and the late nights and early mornings, whatever, of doing things and getting projects done. But throughout that process, you start to develop those friendships, and you don't realize that that becomes your network. And people see like every day that you're doing, like we're evaluating film, right? So you're looking to see what this guy does on the field. No different are we evaluating film here in our lives, right?
Hmm.
Or in the office. You're seeing
Yeah.
who has the willingness, who has the passion, who has the desire, who's a good person, who you can joke with, or who you can go through the waves with. Like those are the people that when you become in these influential roles, or even really on the coaching side too, they trust these guys that they're kind of going through the waves with, and they want to hire people that they trust and respect. So it's no different here, right? So you got to take advantage of those opportunities when they're there, and realize, not to be phony, but like you got to always kind of be on your P's and Q's and make sure you're doing right.
1,000%, 1,000%. Yeah. So, all right, you got up to the 33rd team. So then from there, you continued with the football work from there.
Yeah, so at that point, I was trying to figure out the next steps. Was trying to figure out where to move in the country after Alaska. I was like, I want to get involved in high school coaching in Alaska, but there was not a whole lot going on. I think there was really like 14 or 16 high schools that really competed, and it was a
Wow.
lot different than even what I grew up, seeing in Ohio. So, decided to make the pivot. Decided on Texas was going to be the place. So, got accepted into SMU, TCU, and UT, and then try to figure out where in that you know area could we land and kind of make a move for it. So ironically, the relationship I built with Alex Brown, not trying to get anything out of it, right? I went into it very much with a curious, learning, inquisitive mindset, but it turned into a situation where he got the job director of scouting here at SMU. Just happened to be
Hmm.
moving out to the Metroplex, and he's like, "Dude, I don't have a paid role, but you can come volunteer." So went to grad school here, and I was a college area scout or college scouting assistant is what the title was, and really my entire job was just transfer portal. So like I alluded to it earlier about the 4 a.m. McDonald's parking lot thing. I got down here, I didn't have Wi-Fi for like 3 months, so I'm like, if I want to watch film, I gotta go bum off of the McDonald's, right? So I was sitting in the parking lot watching film, trying to type stuff up. I had their store manager came out one day and he's like, "Hey man, like I got a question for you." What's up? He goes, "Are you gonna rob us?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I see you up here every day from like 4 to 6. You're doing this." I was like, "Dude, no, I just don't have Wi-Fi." He's like, "Oh, come inside. Like you don't sit out here." He's like, "Come on." So I became friends with them and did that for a few months. Eventually got
Wow.
Wi-Fi, upgrade a little bit, but it's wild. It's wild. But those are the links in my mind. I'm like, how do I find a way to make this work, right? Because I still want to be present. I want to be a good dad. I want to do all these kind of things, right? And do right by people in my life and my space. So I'm like, how do I make those my own kind of sacrifices to make sure that I can do that? And one of it was like get up early and get work done, right? So I became the morning shift guy. I was doing classes in the evening. I pop in for a few hours here and there. How about with events? And for me, it was really just like, okay, what are the things I can do to make Alex's job easier? And that could be, helping with photo shoots. It could be data entry. He's like, I hate data entry. So I was like, cool, you never have to worry about it again. I'll be that guy. So finding ways like that to provide value that I was still learning. I didn't know what I didn't know about football or really college football and how it operated. I was really naive to, like we mentioned, alluded to earlier, about all the different roles and functions. But really, I was like, I can control the controllables. I can control my energy, my work ethic, my personality, like those things, and hopefully that's enough to get a job. So after that first year came and went, I did not get a job. So I was exploring every opportunity to go elsewhere, right? And at that
Hmm.
time, I had 1 year of experience. I knew where I could get to, but I didn't really know, I guess, how to get there. I didn't really have as much of the network built up because everything I did to get to that point, I stopped doing, right?
Yeah.
I networked my butt off in the past to gain connections, and I was like, okay, I'm in a building now. I'll just lock in and do the work, right? It'll speak for itself. It eventually did. Like another 6 months later, end up getting a opportunity to be the recruiting and personnel GA here, so it worked out. But the in between time, I was just trying to chase a title, right? It was like I'm seeing people around the industry getting jobs. And I'm like, oh, I know I'm better than that guy. Oh, I see this girl gets a job. Oh, I'm better than her. Like, so it allowed me to. I say this all the time. Like comparison's the thief of joy. I became like really, like a curmudgeon. I guess probably the best way to put it. Like that's my favorite word because I was like, dude, instead of being happy for people that I've been coming up with, like I'm jealous. I'm envious. I'm bitter, right? And it wasn't a good space to be. But it took going through that lesson and I really believe that God kind of put me in that position to understand, like, hey, when I'm in this spot, like, appreciate it, right, for what it is, and understand how hard it is and how difficult the process can be at times. And it doesn't always come on your timeline, right? Maybe at that time, I wouldn't have been appreciated or ready for it 6 months prior to that. I had to go through the waves of learn that experience, right? I've even spoken about to Jeremiah Waite here. He ended up getting the full time role after that first season, and I've told him, man, I was like, dude, I was mad. Like I was like, not anything against him personally, but I was like, I feel like I worked my tail off to get that spot, and like, we're super close friends, and we've been here both, 5 years now together. But even at that time, I'm like, I had to be honest with you because I'm carrying around this feeling, right? So that was unfair, but that was a lesson I had to learn. So I try to tell that to everybody, right? I'm honestly probably too transparent and share too much information. Is probably my biggest red flag, right? Um, we'll go around just make sure people learn these lessons, so hopefully they can avoid those things in their path. And then from there, Alex ended up moving on to another opportunity at Ole Miss. Shay Taylor was my direct, boss in the recruiting department. She ended up going off to another role as well. Ended up going over to Arkansas, was in the recruiting department over there. But anyways, like that changeover happened. Then J.R. Sandlin came in, and it was really the opportunity it was in alignment with the time we were joining the ACC, and just a whole fundamental shift in how we operated here. We're really heavily scouting focused, and we probably operated like an NFL franchise from the terms of like how much film we were watching and the boards we had built out and everything, which is great. But at the same time, we got to understand that in the college space, the coaches are the ones making the picks, right? We're not, a lot of times the GMs, you might have your exceptions, like your Texas Techs and things of that nature where it's more, the personnel front office driven. But in a general sense, the coaches are the ones recruiting. They're the ones, filling the rooms. They're the ones talking scheme, all that kind of stuff. So they make the picks. How do we best support them in making those picks? So that was really kind of a shift in mentality we had here. I was interim director of on-campus recruiting for a few months until we brought Paige Smith on from Houston, which was, a breath of fresh air because she brought in new perspectives and did a great job. And then we started filling out the rest of our department. We ended up having our personnel and recruiting GA separately, like two separate roles. We built our scouting department, our recruiting department, and then kind of fell into a role now where it's a hybrid of, it's a recruiting operations role, which is really just Spanish for all the things that no one else really wants to do, right? So travel logistics,
Yeah.
different campus partners, coordinating all the things behind the scenes, but then still trying to find a way to be personable, to be a host, be kind of more of an and guy, right? So it's like you can do logistics and you can scout and you can recruit and you can, so the more and more things like that you can do and develop others, right? That's really what this role is turning to me. So that's the condensed version. There's probably more tangents and caveats I can get off to for that, but that's really the down and dirty for it.
Yeah, man. So that whole little part about when you were first coming up and seeing others and that are your peers get to places, that is such a real thing. It's such a real thing that a lot of people really do need to understand earlier on. And like you, I had my lesson earlier on in my career in the sense that a few years ago when I first graduated college and I'm looking for my season long internship that I think I obviously should get because I've had three training camp internships and I don't get anything. And I see people who haven't done anything training camp or NFL and they're getting season long positions. And it was like, I really don't understand. But then again, I had to have that moment of like, wow, I can just, keep pushing, keep doing what I can do. And I'm just glad that somebody's getting an opportunity. That person was also in the same boat as me. Every single person in this industry has been in that same spot at some point where they've had a moment where they're like, man, I feel like I should have got that. I feel like I should have got that. Because ultimately, every time the job opens up at SMU for the Cincinnati Bengals, for the Dallas Cowboys, there's 1,000 minimum applications coming in, and so there's just so many people. There's such a big pool, and You can't live envious of others, especially in this industry. So yeah, I feel like that is a really good lesson to learn and grow within early on in your career. So that is really cool. I love the combination of everything that you just said for your current role and how it's a hybrid of everything in a sense that you're involved with all those different aspects of it. So yeah, I like the logistics and everything. Like you think of normally the director of operations just handling logistics or something like that, but for that to be all encompassed within your role, like that really is some legit work that you're doing, and you should give yourself a little bit more of a pat on the back because that is
Appreciate that.
awesome.
Appreciate that.
That
Yeah,
is awesome.
our DFO, Josh Nash, does a great job. Him and Hannah Cesario are great, and they're really in the world of team logistics and travel logistics, right? So if you got, hey, advancing to go to hotels to figure out when we go on the road. So
Yeah,
it's really
the meals.
correct. It's one and the
Hmm.
same, and that just kind of just what pathway you're choosing. So I lean on them a lot for advice and like vendors and support things of that nature. So it takes so many people to make this thing run, but it's really incredible to see it all come together.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So again, back to your roots. You said basketball was originally your go-to. What was the moment where you were like, "All right, football. This is it for me." When was that moment for you?
Yeah. So I loved football too. Like I was a better basketball player than football player is probably the best way to put it. So basketball in my mind, I'm like, I understand the game a little bit better. I feel like I can play a little bit, not amazing by any means, but I can play, I can understand. And I was like, I felt really comfortable in talking like the fundamentals of basketball, right? Because I felt like I could do it a little bit more as opposed to the football side. I was a hard worker. Like I wasn't necessarily like I wasn't a great player by any means. Like I'm just call it what it is, right? I understood the game, but I couldn't go out and in my mind I didn't have any kind of credibility to like, I had like 5 career catches I think in high school. Like it was nothing. I had like 40,
Yeah.
40 total tackles. Like who's gonna listen to me about football, right? But I knew, like, man, my weeks, like, I would eat, live, breathe Cleveland Browns football, right? Like, I was listening to all the podcasts, I was watching the games on Sunday, and like, my week could be determined by the outcome of the Browns on Sunday, and more often than not was not great, right?
Bad week. It was probably a bad week more times than
Yeah,
not.
not many victory Mondays sprinkled in there, but I just felt like the connection to it, and for me it was really just more sports in general. So like once I kind of got out of that avenue of like, okay, maybe I don't specifically want to coach, just because I didn't really understand the pathways either. I was like, what can I do, and how can I use this knowledge and passion that I have, and just kind of fell into the space where like football seemed like something that was attainable. It felt like something that it was tangible, I could pursue. I started to know people in the space, and I was like, let's just like go, head head forward and try to make it work. So that's really what it turned into.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, so now that we have covered a little bit about how you got to SMU, how you got to your current role and everything. So now give me in the audience a taste of what your day to day looks like. Give me like a summer day, an in season day, and then like an off season, like off season, like that little bit of window of off
Yeah,
season you get.
yeah, for
What
sure.
does that look like? And then so those three different
Yeah, for
options.
sure. So I'm very thankful here that Coach Lashley is. It's a lot of people. It's cliche to say the family type thing, and you're looking for that family dynamic. But like a lot of us here have young families, right? So it's important that we can work hard. There's times and periods where you have to work, right? Where it's like you can't really. Hey, you might be here for 12 hours a day or 14 hours, whatever it is. There might be days where you got stuff done. What can wait till tomorrow? So he's done a really good job of establishing that culture where there's not a desk guard, right? There's not someone sitting here, oh, you weren't here at 6, oh, why are you leaving at 5? Like whatever the criteria is. So he really empowers us and trusts us to do our job, which is great, and that's kind of trickled down throughout the organization. So JR is the same kind of way. Like, hey, here's the core parts of your job, and here's what a win looks like in your job, which is great. So there's no guesswork. Really, I guess for now, we'll talk more this, I guess, spring, summer window. So we got a lot of hats we're trying to balance, right? Like I alluded to, we had 2 days of mega camps. So we had, 2,000 plus high school student athletes coming through and working out in front of our coaches. So helping with logistics of reserving the indoor facility to use and getting stanchions set up to coordinating what potential student workers we might have or what specialists and all the other components of that and helping connect the dots and being part of the team for that. and Chris Wood, our director of high school relations, and Brittany Doan in our player development space, like did an incredible job as well. As that we're like in the three-headed monster of getting that rolling this year. But that was one component. Then you have official visits going on. So in my role currently, I'm kind of the point person for sending out our questionnaire to make sure we understand like who the guests are that are coming, like are there any food allergies, any ADA accessibilities, what flight options we need, car services. So kind of running a point on that component with Bailey Bennett. She's our on-campus, our assistant director of on-campus recruiting here. So she's handled a bunch of what the actual visit looks like, and I'm trying to help supplement to make sure we get people here on time and they enjoy their time. So you have some of those components. We have new student workers and specialists that are here now too, so trying to help them get up to speed, doing some onboarding, human resource components, that nature. We just had the end of the fiscal year for us, so like reconciliation with the business office, right? Getting on and making sure that expense reports are done and all the other things in between. Absolutely, absolutely. Like, did we spend too much? Like having budget meetings, like, all those components. That's really like this time of the year is that more in it kind of ebbs and flows. Like I'm really involved in like in head coach's travel when he goes out in January. So whether it's private plane coordination or rental car coordination, things of that nature, making sure that not necessarily building out his hey, you're going to these schools. Our personnel team does a really good job with that. But I'm more so, hey, how can I help the logistic components make sense where you can get from point A to point B? So that December, January timeframe looks a lot like that. Anytime coaches are on the road, I'm kind of one of their support elements for, hey, I need a rental car. Cool, I'm going here. Hey, I need a flight to go here. So a lot of those balancing, kind of making all the pieces fit in the puzzle. And then for us in the fall, it kind of becomes a little bit less. The emphasis stress goes more towards the coaches and the game prep and everything like that. Our world not necessarily calms down, but the tempo it goes into more of a pre-planning for the spring, summer, the next go around, right? Make sure we have do a little bit of relooking at our previous year's visits. What can we fine tune? What can we improve? What worked? What didn't work? What things we need to get on the calendar to get reserved? The school's going to try to use, right? Like we have a new end zone complex. Everybody wants to be in here, right? So we got to make sure we have use of our space. So things of that nature. Really invested in a lot of our specialist development, right? So whether it's professional development, getting on calls, or helping do resume seminars, or getting them on and doing mock interviews with other schools, things like that to invest in the people. Because that's another thing that I feel like we've done at a really high level is bring people in, and whether it's you want to hire everybody, right? Like everyone that comes through, but the reality is unless people leave, all those roles don't open up. So how do we prepare them the best that we can and give them the most they can out of their experience, whether they're a part-time paid student worker or a post-grad volunteer or something in between, right? So that's really what I guess my life and role looks like depending on time of year. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does, absolutely. So tell me something that has been a challenge for you during your time, something that has been thrown at you and you've been, oh man, I didn't expect that curveball. Just tell me a little bit about a challenge.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing for me, and I don't necessarily call it a challenge. It's more of an opportunity for growth, and I kind of had to go through that wave too. So you think about what you've gone through to get to the point, right? I think about working another job and making this long commute and staying up late, getting up early, whatever it is to make the dream a reality, right? To kind of will it into existence. And you hear stories of other people, right? And you want that so badly for them. It's that thing of like. You hear a coach, you want it so bad for a player, but you can't force that player to do things, right? They either have the work ethic
No.
or they don't. You can try to motivate and inspire, but that was probably the most difficult lesson that I've learned, because I feel like I try to invest so much in the people that we have that at the end of the day, I feel like life is about relationships, right? And how you can be there for people, support people, help lift them up, and but also be transparent, be real with them too. So that was a part for me where I almost became too invested in the story and almost want to make other people's success my responsibility, if that makes sense. So having to learn that like it's not going to happen for everybody, and that's okay, right? You do the best you can. You try to be the best, mentor, best support you can, provide opportunities. But at the end of the day, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And I had to be okay with that. I spent a lot of sleepless nights and things trying to rack myself mentally, like how do I help this person, right? So having to go through some of those lessons was probably the biggest obstacle or curveball that I didn't expect to see coming.
Yeah, I can imagine that is definitely a tough one because I can understand that. I feel like relationships are such they're gold. I love talking to people. I love working with people, and I love helping people. And when you see what somebody can do or can become, and they don't want it for themselves, it can be a little tough. So that is a very a good lesson and a good opportunity for growth, like you phrased it. I also like phrasing challenges as just an opportunity to grow. So
Absolutely.
again, you're spitting game, man. You're spitting
Appreciate that.
game.
Appreciate that, bro.
Yeah. So then tell me what is your favorite part about what you do? I know it's a hard question, but just what is it that when you wake up, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to do this today.
Yeah, my favorite thing, honestly, is probably just being around the players, right? Like seeing them twofold, right? So being around the players, and then also bringing people on campus for the first time and getting to show them, SMU, right? At the end of the day, like I think they kind of go hand in hand. So when you're going on a tour, you're taking guys around, and you're seeing players in the hallway, and you're BS and chopping it up, doing handshakes, whatever it is, or you see the equipment guys or the athletic training staff, whatever it is, right? And you have all your little inside jokes. Like people can see the authenticity and feel that energy that's there, and it becomes contagious. People want to be a part of it, right? So it's like enjoying the relationships that we have that are already established, but then also trying to welcome new people into that world and into that relationship is probably it's honestly the best part of the job.
Yeah, you just wake up ready to go and just socialize and mingle, man.
100%.
I love
There's
it.
times where the social battery gets tapped out, right? When you're on a back-to-back of long OVs and multiple parent socials and things of that nature, where you're just like, man,
Yeah.
it's a grind, but it's like you got to think about at the end of the day, like we need to focus on building as much trust with parents and guardians, family members, all that stuff as well too, because they're trusting their kids with us, right? And
Hmm.
it's a big step to bring them here into school, and like we want to be the same people, whether it's a midnight on a parent social or if it's 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, right? You want to be the same person, and we like to be as authentic and transparent as possible, and that's the way we do things here.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That is beautiful. So again, back to like the whole premise of this podcast is helping others that are trying to get their foot in the door and or that are truly just kind of curious about what the reality of the back doors of sports really looks like. So I want to wrap up by kind of going back to the idea of what would you suggest to I'm gonna say let's make it a sophomore in college or they just finished their sophomore year, they're going into their junior year and they're looking to work in sports or football specifically. What is the one thing you would tell them that they should spend this summer doing? And what's something you would tell them to spend the next 2 years of college doing?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, like try to find a way to get involved on campus, right? It doesn't even have to necessarily be with. Ideally, if you're having a football interest, you get involved with the football team. But a lot of what we're doing across athletics, there's a lot of parallels, right? Whether you're a DFO in football or DBO in basketball, like you're still the scale of it might be different. You might have different budgets you're working with and whatever, but like it's the same job in a sense, right? So get involved in one way or another. In the summertime, it's a great opportunity for events, right? We have a pretty sizable team that we just brought on here really for the next couple of months, the May and June months, to work events with us, right? A lot of them are students, and it's an opportunity. We come in and we're like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to get an entry point into the program, right? If you want to be around and shadow and do other things, like whether it's player personnel, whether it's recruiting, whether it's operations, whatever it is, like here's an opportunity to get into the program and see that. Not everywhere is built the same, right? So you kind of take that with a grain of salt and have to fill it out for your situation. But more often than not, a lot of programs run on free labor. Let's call it what it is, right? On volunteers, on interns, and those kind of things. So how
Those
can you
people make the world spin.
100%. So how can you get to the building and show those things like we alluded to earlier, right? Your attitude. Can you show up on time? Are you personable? Are you willing? Like all those things, which aren't things you really learn in the classroom. Like it's not like, oh, hey, in sports management, event management 201, I learned how to do this. But it's like an opportunity to get in here and get some real world experience. And once people see that, you kind of gain their trust. You have more opportunities. So like kind of laying the framework or planting those seeds in the summer is a great opportunity. Even NFL side, you've got OTAs and training camps and all other things going on. They're begging for people to come and help out with events. Like so, be a parking
Yeah.
lot attendant to like sit here and like it might not be the most glamorous thing in the world, but find a way to get your foot in the door and do that, right? A lot of that, unfortunately, though, unless you kind of plant the seeds early, a lot of opportunities don't. You can't just like, hey, start today and try to find something to get rolling the rest of summer. So a lot of you have to think of a season ahead in some respects. So if you're in the summer period now, I would think about, okay, going into the fall, is there any way we can help out in game days, right?
Hmm.
Whether that's with just athletics department in general, the marketing team, with whatever it is. So find a way to get your foot in the door that way as well. Leading to campus partners. So many programs will have experiential learning credits that are required, whether it's an internship or whatever. Lean into the professors that you have. Lean into, shoot, if you got athletes in your class, like they might be able to help connect some dots for you as well, right? So just kind of getting creative with the network that you have, but then you have to be prepared for when the opportunity presents itself, right? You might get a call or text one day, hey man, what's up? This is Bryan Filker at SMU. I got 10 minutes. Like, you got some time to jump on. And if you don't, I'm not saying, you drop everything for me, right, to get on the phone, but like, here's an opportunity. Like, are you ready to jump on and let's chat? So always being prepared, having your resumes ready, having those updated, having contacts, knowing your elevator pitch, like all the different little things that you hear about in the classroom, right? When those opportunities come, like, be ready to ask questions, be curious, be inquisitive. Like, that's probably the best thing I could recommend. And then in the student component, so many people are willing to help students, right? Because you're wanting to learn. You're in an opportunity where a lot of people aren't that all that far removed from being in school themselves, and they understand how tough it can be to try to break in. So if you're worth a darn, you're probably opening those DMs, those emails from people that are curious. Hey, Spencer, I'd love to jump on the phone. If you ever got any point in time, like, take 10 minutes just learn about your job, right? Ask questions like, what are the things you enjoy? Like, just what we're doing here today, right? You never know what those can lead to, and then the fortunes in the follow-up, right? So once you make those connections, how do you find ways to stay in the top of their inbox? It could be in season. Hey man, Spencer, I see you guys are playing against University of Cincinnati this weekend, man. Good luck to you. Oh shoot, hey, you guys just took down Xavier, like, awesome. Like, whatever it could be, right? Finding ways to have those easy layups. And then so much on social media, people like tell you everything, right? At least what they want you to see. So like,
Yeah.
man, oh hey, Spencer might be a big big swimming fan, right? Like, I'm totally not in that world myself, but I can do some research. Like, oh man, maybe know something about Michael Phelps, right? Whatever it could be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Build connection points, and it's just easy layups to use football as a connection. But then, what's your relationship build into afterwards? To kind of the reoccurring theme.
Yeah. So would you also, I feel like I would suggest the same advice to almost about anybody, but would you also say the same thing? Let's say there's a 25-year-old that's somewhat similar to you earlier in your career, just that doesn't really have an idea, and all of a sudden they think, okay, maybe I should go work in football, but they have no idea what to do. Would you say the same thing there?
Yeah, it's just to be fully transparent, it's gonna be more challenging, right? Because you end up in a
Hmm.
spot where, okay, you're not a student anymore. You're like, people are probably less likely to respond to emails. You have to have a story, right? You have to have a why, but also have a how is what you're trying to do. So I think that it's really about how you kind of present yourself and market yourself as well. There's some folks I see on LinkedIn that do a great job of telling their story that aren't in sports, right? But I know,
Hmm.
hey, I pull up this guy's name, I know what he's trying to aim for. So if I ever see anything, I'm going to help relay some information in that space. But at the end of the day, you're really just trying to find the good people that can help connect some of those dots. But you end up in a spot where, particularly in the college ranks, like, a lot of schools don't allow, like, post grad volunteers. Like, they only allow students.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of, it's a case by case scenario. But all those same principles apply. There's I mean, countless of other ways. You can go to the recruiting personnel symposium in August, and you don't have to be associated to school. You can go and, like, get to meet people and ask questions. We had a couple guys here that are working with us now that last year
Hmm.
were SMU students. They hit us up a few different times. We just never really connected the dots. We get down to Nashville, and they're down there, like, waiting to talk to us, and we get hit it off with them the weekend. They've been working with us the past few months. So it's like,
Yeah.
you have to kind of bet on yourself and put your money where your mouth is. But those are great opportunities. AFCA, Texas High School Coach Association, the Combine, like, the DFO convention that they have. Like, there's all these different events that are going on. Find a way to get yourself out there and get in the building, and don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself. It's probably the best advice there.
There we go, man. Well, Brian, I can't thank you enough for taking the time for joining me today. I feel like I learned so much, so I know that everyone listening that takes the time to listen to this is going to feel like they learned a lot as well. So, again, seriously, thank you so
I
much. I
appreciate
hope
you, man.
that this coming summer is amazing for you guys. Everything goes as smooth as possible. And if you guys ever need anything, just let me know. My listeners, my followers, my friends, thank you guys so much for listening and checking out Ball Talk with Boyd. We'll be back with another episode next week. I actually have a former NFL player coming, so you're not going to want to miss that. Again, thank you, Brian, and thank you to everybody. We'll see you next time.
Appreciate you.